Welcome and thank you for reviewing another faculty pre-departure orientation video. This video is entitled Student Conduct and Discipline. As a preamble to a discussion of student behavior, I would like to make the point that the vast majority of students behave in entirely appropriate ways while participating in study abroad or study away programming. This being said, there is always the possibility of working with a challenging student. As an overall best practice, it is important to set boundaries and expectations both before pre-departure and again upon arrival. As a reminder for all program leaders, in addition to the usual release of liability and emergency treatment documentation the students will sign as part of their own orientations, they also e-sign a Code of Conduct agreement and have their own pre-departure materials that detail the institutional expectations of conduct. We recognize that faculty and staff leading programming off campus may have varying levels of practice and comfort with respect to addressing student conduct. Additionally, conduct expectations may vary to the site, as behavior that would be appropriate in one location or with one type of student would not be in another set of circumstances. For example, a program involving graduate students might have a very different approach versus a program involving first-year students. Again, your best defense in terms of student conduct is to hammer home the program and your personal expectations before an incident occurs. It is always far more difficult to back students out of bad behavior as opposed to preventing it in the first place. Professional experience indicates that alcohol is almost always involved in student conduct issues, either as a primary cause or as an element that magnifies the problem. As mentioned in an additional video, due to theme park syndrome that often impacts students, the consequences of action can be grossly distorted. Needless to say, alcohol can radically exacerbate this distortion and subsequent consequences. No faculty or staff member is expected to be the alcohol police with students. We do strongly encourage frank and honest conversations about public safety with students, in particular in the context of the country to which the program will take place. In terms of best practices for addressing this, approaching behavior over just consumption of alcohol is a more defensible stand. In order to assess behavioral issues with respect to alcohol, we have developed a three-phase model for recognizing when the problem has become a disciplinary issue. In the first phase, you and your fellow faculty have noticed a student is regularly late, smells of alcohol, and has quit participating in class, sleeps constantly on the bus or other transportation, in particular while you are working to engage the group. Overall, a noticeable downturn in their personal and professional behavior. In Phase 2, the concern has become noticeable to the whole group. Other students might start to complain about someone being perpetually late or partying too much at night and sleeping during class. Take this phase seriously, even if the students are talking about it in humor. In the final phase, someone outside the group has noticed the problem. A hotel or housing manager has complained, a provider or host has expressed concern, a student or students have been removed from a bar or restaurant, or in the most extreme cases, the local authorities are involved. In our professional experience, an alcohol-related problem rarely starts at Phase 3, and as mentioned before, backing students out of behavior can be very difficult. This can be particularly challenging in short-term programming where everyone is thinking it's only a few more days. Set expectations before departure. Should you sense a Phase 1 problem with the student, it would be our strong suggestion to address it immediately before it progresses. It is clearly outlined in student pre-departure materials that reflect CSUF and CSU policies that any and all non-prescription drug use is absolutely forbidden on study abroad or study away programming. The vast majority of students will adhere to this standard. However, there are two areas that need additional attention. One is the use of prescription medication that might be misused by students, such as medications not prescribed to them and are shared and/or certain medications that might be considered controlled substances in the host country. An example of this is the common ADHD medication Adderall, which is most technically illegal even when prescribed in Japan. A second area that needs additional discussion is marijuana. We are aware of the rapidly evolving cultural and legal attitude about marijuana in the United States. As of the production of this video, it is still a federal crime to transport marijuana via any flight, even between two domestic locations where sale and possession is legal, let alone internationally. Some U.S. students have a very passive attitude about marijuana, which is not held by legal authorities in many host countries. We stress this point to students even in the sites where local culture and/or local legal authorities appear to have a passive approach to marijuana laws. If a student is arrested for drug use, possession, or sales while abroad, they can expect very real, very serious consequences, both from the local authorities and American ones. A reminder to students that they will be subject to the laws and legal process of the host country is always helpful. Should an incident like this occur, there is very little that you, the university, and indeed the U.S. government can do on the student's behalf if the student is arrested. Contacting the CSUF Office of Study Abroad and/or the CSUF Office of Risk Management is the best next step. Sometimes separate from, sometimes in conjunction with, the previously detailed concerns, some students deal with mental health challenges when studying abroad or away. The act of leaving one's family, home, school, and country for the very first time, in many cases, can cause tremendous levels of stress in a student. In the most extreme cases, remember that the CSUF International Insurance does cover the charges associated with mental health care abroad for students and can assist in locating appropriate English language mental health care. We recognize that these circumstances are thankfully rare. However, lower grade concerns with students are not uncommon. If you suspect that a student is dealing with a mental health issue, do not hesitate to contact the Office of Study Abroad here at CSUF, and we can connect you with appropriate campus resources to identify next steps. The CSUF Study Abroad team is here if you need our guidance or help, so maintain communication, and thank you again for taking time to review this material.